Good evening, everyone. We're going to call this Board of Education meeting to order at 6:32. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have any public comment in the room? Seeing none. Do we have any public comment online? None there either. I don't have any correspondence. Troy, do you have any correspondence?
I do not.
Can I make a motion?
I would love for you to make a motion.
Thank you. Can I make a motion to add, please, 7C power outage?
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? I think we should also say that there are 5 of us here, and Brian Burdick is joining us via Zoom. That we have a 7C, and now we have Kristen St. Germain to present some CABE awards to our 8th grade students. Hi, Kristen.
Okay, is that working? Welcome, everyone. The Connecticut Association of Board of Education every year gives an award called the CABE Award, and it is given to students who are able to show willingness to take on challenges above those of everyday hurdles, capability to make decisions that may be difficult while showing concern for others, as well as an ability to adapt to new situations and work with different peers to create new solutions. This year, I'm very proud to say our first recipient at Wheeler Middle School is Lila Van Frechen. Lila is a student who has shown all of the above characteristics and more, and has an innate ability to care for others with great compassion. Lila works well in group situations and walks the road less traveled when it comes to creating unique solutions to problems. Lila has been part of our Wheeler drama program, and outside of school has pursued her interest in acting and modeling and maintains solid grades through all of it. Lila's teachers are appreciative of her positive attitude and feel she has been a pleasure to work with throughout the year and through her experiences at the middle school, and has always been a role model to her peers. I am very excited to congratulate Lila, our first 2025 recipient of this year's CABE Award. Come on up, Lila. Come on up. Yes, Lila, we're going to take lots of pictures too. Congratulations. And I'm gonna come up with this.
And our second recipient of the CABE Award is Jack Umflett. Jack has worked incredibly hard this year to succeed in each of these characteristics in his everyday school life. Despite a significant loss he suffered this year, Jack has come to school every single day with a smile on his face and a positive attitude. Jack is a team player with a high motivation to succeed. Jack refuses to leave anyone behind, and not only has his kindness stood out this year, but so has his commitment to his work, his peers, and his school community. His teachers recognize and admire his positive attitude and what an outstanding role model he has been to all of his peers. Congratulations to Jack Umflett.
Thank you, everyone. I imagine these two wonderful kiddos are going to do great things in high school, and we look forward to seeing that. Great job.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Lila and Jack, for being wonderful young leaders, role models for your peers. And we're so excited to see what you do in the next 4 years. So thank you for everything that you do for our school community. That's true too. You don't have to tell them twice. Thank you all so much. And now we have Bern Macca for our winter sports review.
All right, here we go. So our winter recap does seem like it was a long time ago now, actually, the winter season. Now that we're solidly in the spring season, heading toward the end. So I'll just let all the slides kind of do the talking. There are a lot of pictures of athletes and teams and coaches, and I think that kind of captures a lot of what we're doing as well. All right, go ahead, next slide. All right, there we go. So for in the winter season for the middle school, we had 3 middle school teams. We had 3 coaches and 44 student athletes. This was the first year in more than a few years that we had a middle school cheer team. No one could tell me exactly when the last time we had that team. So that was great that we had a team kind of come back online. We had enough interest, and that was a strong showing for that team. Okay. And there is our middle school cheer team. Go ahead. And we had 14 total, which was a great number for a team coming back online. There's the breakdown in terms of the grades that the student athletes were in. They did cheer at all home middle school basketball games. And like I said, first time in 3 or 4 years that we had this team. Then we had our boys middle school basketball team. And we had 17 players total, broken up into A and B teams, A meaning more like the varsity team, B more like the JV team. That is the breakdown in terms of grades. We did have to cut 7 students just in terms of that 24 would have been way too many for the gym space and the practice space and having one coach. Overall, their record was 5-10. They kind of figured things out as the season went along. They had a great young coach who really inspired them and held them accountable and really wanted to make them come to school and basketball every day. He was awesome. They won the last 3 games of the regular season to qualify for the first round of the playoffs, which was really exciting. And overall, I would say a really successful season with that group. And then our girls middle school basketball team. And we had 13 players, again, broken up into the A and B teams. That is the breakdown. So really strong numbers in the 7th grade group. Really had like a dominant season. Their record was 11-3. We actually hosted the QBJC, which is the league that we play in. We hosted that championship game. It was a really close game. So a really super successful season overall. I will say one really challenging thing about the middle school teams and something that we did hear in the parent survey is due to the nature of having one gym for middle school teams and also high school teams. When we host games, we're really only able to play the A game. because after the A game ends, we need the girls varsity team and JV team to practice, the boys varsity team and JV team to practice. And we just run out of gym time. We can't have them practicing beyond 9:30 at night. So that is challenging and disappointing for parents. When we go on the road, we're playing games at middle school gyms, not high school gyms that are sharing. So they're always able to play the A and B games, which is great. But our B team does miss out on half of the games. And we heard that loud and clear in the survey that the parents filled out. And we're just really limited by our facility space. In terms of winter co-op sports, so we had wrestling happening at Griswold. We had 10 student athletes, 8 boys, 2 girls. That's the breakdown in terms of grades. So definitely heavy on the upper grades. One of our wrestlers did earn ECC All-Star recognition, so that was really exciting. Russell as a senior. Boys swimming at Fitch, we had 1 swimmer, and he had a good season up and down. He had to switch which races and meets he was qualifying in and helping the team, but he did qualify for the CIAC meet. And then our girls indoor track team, and 20 runners overall, a good breakdown in terms of grades, over 100 personal records throughout the season. 3 of them qualified for the state meet. 6 of them were medal winners at the ECC meet, meaning that they were in the top 5 of that event that they ran. An 8th place overall at the ECC meet. And then we had, which was exciting, some award winners. Again, really, I think outstanding results for a team who like practices in the hallways, right, and runs up and down the stairs. We were able to, with the Ed Foundation grant, we were able to turn the old training room into a pseudo exercise room, and we bought a whole bunch of new equipment with that grant, and that definitely did help. Kettlebells, dumbbells, so they would actually take all of the equipment out to like the hallway where like the guidance office is, and they were really creative with using space in the gym or in the school, and using every bit of facility and equipment that we had. And Ms. McGuire and also Maddie Silvestri. So they both coached the indoor track team, and they are phenomenal coaches and phenomenal people. Another picture, just a couple random pictures. You can just circle through. Pictures are really hard at indoor track meets because everyone's moving fast and the lighting is terrible. But and then we have our boys indoor track team. 15 runners overall, heavy on the senior side, and then a good breakdown. Again, over 100 PRs throughout the season. 5 of them qualified for the state meet. 5 medal winners at the ECC meet, which is a top 5 finish. Just like the girls, 8th place finish at the ECC meet, and then some award winners. So also a very, very successful indoor track season. That was them celebrating their senior nights. Some pictures from one of the indoor meets. And then our girls basketball team, huge improvement from last season in terms of overall numbers on the team and also success. Last season, they only had 7 players total in the program. And this year we had 16 players, a really nice, young group in the 9th grade. Overall record of 15-6, which was outstanding. We won our division. We hosted an ECC quarterfinal game. We qualified for the state tournament. And then we had a couple ECC first team award winners and also honorable mention. So to go from where they were last season to where we were this season was just a 150% turnaround, and really exciting, and a good number of youth players in the program that makes it exciting for the future. Megan Perkins and Curtis Keeley were our coaches. They obviously had a huge part in turning this whole thing around and getting more girls to want to play. their senior night. And that's, so when a team wins a division championship, we try to, put it out there to the world, obviously within our community, but also on our Instagram page, and just get them some recognition for their hard work. And then our boys basketball team, also a very successful season. So 22 total players in the program. There's the breakdown in terms of grades. Overall record 10-13, qualified for the state tournament, won their division championship just like the girls did. A number of players earning postseason recognition, and also an all-state player, which was really successful. Coming off a super successful season, the past year, and we definitely had a very difficult schedule going into this year, because when you have that kind of success, right, you schedule a little bit of a harder, I think competition-wise, but overall, I would say a really successful season. Our coaches, Stephen Bailey and Kevin Noonan, great coaches. And then that was from our media day. That was from our media day. Zane Brewer ended up breaking the all-time scoring record during the season. So that was his point total on that night when he became the all-time leading scorer. And then he went on to finish with 1,300 and some. But an amazing accomplishment for Zane to be the guy that has scored the most points here at Wheeler ever. So that was really exciting. And then again, they were division champs. And then our cheer squad. So we had 14 cheerleaders overall. That's the grade breakdown. They were the second runner-up at the ECC cheer competition. That's the one that Waterford hosts. A couple really great pieces of recognition for some of our cheerleaders, and also an all-state recognition for Zoe. Our cheer team was a little bit less experienced in terms of stunting. So Coach Tardif decided not to go to an extra competition this year, but give them a lot more practice time on the mat, and kind of work on their routines. I think that's something that in the next year or two, she would definitely add another date of competition for them. And that was their senior day. That's your coaches, Sherry Tardif and Suzanne Cutter. And this is just our athletic teams giving back. So each season we try hard. Sometimes it's themed with the time of the year or the month, but each athletic season we try hard to make a point, that all of our teams are doing something positive, either for our community or like the bigger community of Coaches versus Cancer. So each basketball team hosted a game. They had pink shirts. We had a donation bucket. And the kids did a great job, like decorating the gym, with pink streamers and pink balloons, and it was fun. And then we also hosted for the first time a rec basketball night, so coordinated with Tom Fabian, and rec basketball players got to get in for free along with one adult. We did have a good number, so they kind of extended the lane right there for the handshake line, and it was great to see a bunch of young, kind of enthusiastic basketball players at the game, and we're hoping we can build on this and get more of them in the future. And then that's our crowd right there. Yeah. Any questions or thoughts or comments?
Thank you. It was a great season. Thanks for everything that you do for our kids. I think we've had just a really wonderful first year, and it's great. And thank you for your wonderful update as well.
Thanks.
Vern, sorry. Do we have a plan going into next season as to things that might work better with that AB team? Because I know that was something that I heard from parents as well, is that we travel a decent distance in order to play a lot of our away games, and so parents had to drive long distances just to get to see the kids on that B team play. Is there a way that we can schedule on different days, or I just don't, I didn't know if we were thinking through ways to try and work through that, or if it's just kind of it's not going to work and we're going to let it be.
Are you going to build us a gym?
I
That'd
would
be
love,
great.
I have been talking sports bubble for 3 years now, but
Honestly, we're going to talk about, like, I think we want to also talk about the sixth grade edition. There's a lot of things that I think at the end of the year we'll talk about. I just came back up because I want to say, I don't know if you're aware of this, but I think we have at least 6 or 7 athletes and 2 coaches, I believe, that were nominated for the day's best of the best. This year, for the first time ever, they're acknowledging high school sports, coaches, athletes. We got a letter yesterday. I cannot believe how many of our students were nominated, and actually we officially found out made the cut of the top 3. Almost every single one of them that was nominated is now in the top 3, so they will be in the paper every single week. People can vote, but it's just really exciting. And I want to say, like, Bern has come in. She's had big shoes to fill, and she has done such a great job. She's added programming. Like, she's really thinking outside the box on a lot of things. So that happens because we have people who truly understand the impact of sports and that they're more than wins and losses and what they do for our kids. So Chet, if you want to build us a gym, we'll take it, because I do think sports are a really important part of the success of our high school. So, we're open to ideas, but we are limited, definitely, with space.
but
need a lot of
besides
money.
another gym,
I need a gym and a lot of money. I mean, that's a great question. One thing that we did put together this year that I found really helpful. So our reinvigorated booster club has been amazing, and we've had I don't know the total amount that you guys have raised, over 11,000.
It's a lot. And
It's
I
a lot
think
of money.
more exciting is the push to like not hold on to it,
Right.
right? Like get it back out to the programs.
Yes.
You've been a huge part of galvanizing what sports boosters should be and telling us what you need.
Mhm.
So that's been really exciting.
Thanks. So one really helpful thing in doing that exercise is I went to each coach and we sat down and we made a priority list of short-term, medium-term, and long-term needs for their program. So everything from, like, we need new batons for track to, like, we need a new batting cage for softball. So the thing, the range of prices, of course, irrigation or soccer field or turf field is on there long-term for, our field sports. So I think we have a really good handle for each program, what they really need to continue to offer the opportunities and also be successful. So that's something I could certainly share, coming from the coach, but also making sure that it makes sense for Wheeler and it makes sense for, like, the growth of our program. We are also looking at, in terms of middle school, the league we're in, the QVJC, is not local. Most of the schools are up Putnam, Thompson, Eastford, Ashford. It's a drive. It's like an hour drive, which is tough for middle school competition. I am looking at the Shoreline League as a possibility, but also just the more local league, the Preston Voluntown. They don't offer a lot of the sports that we offer, so none of them offer baseball, softball in the spring. So I think we have to look at what makes sense for the middle school overall, and then maybe find ways to work around that. We were able to get them a few extra games. We played the Williams School, we played St. Bernard's in middle school. Again, local, close, good relationships with schools, but it's difficult in the league that we're in, where we're locked into that gym time and only having the home A game.
I also, I mean, the volleyball I went to watch one time for the middle school, and my goodness, the number of girls out for that team is spectacular.
Unbelievable.
Thank you for being willing to consider that and have that be something that we brought in as kind of a club / whatever style team that is. I think that's spectacular. And yes, please share with us the list, because I know we approved out of non-lapsing for that softball batting cage.
Yeah.
And I think that if you come to us with that sort of a thing, when we're sitting on those pieces and looking for things that's nice to have, these are the things that are really, really necessary. And if you go to Troy with those, I think if they come to us, we like to support sports. I like to support sports, I guess. I shouldn't speak for the board, but
Thanks, Brian. Troy, do you want to talk, I know that we don't have the students here. Do you want to talk about the all-state certificates or Bern? do you
Actually,
wanna
Bern,
talk about
Bern,
those?
could you mention them?
Three of our winter athletes earned all-state recognition at the end of the season. So they attended the all-state banquet at the AquaTurf, and we are recognizing them tonight. We're 0 for 3 tonight. 2 of them are working. One had a family commitment, so they just couldn't make the date work. But really exciting out of the winter season to have 3 of our student athletes recognized at that level is, I think, incredible. Zoe Conway for cheerleading, Zane Brewer, who we saw earlier for boys basketball, and Sophia Gavea played ice hockey for the co-op at Woodstock Academy. Talk about a commute, right? So practice every single day. So just really exciting stuff that they are at a really high level in terms of competition and what they're doing daily to make our teams better and to make their teammates better.
Well, congratulations to Zoe, Zane, and to Sophia. Thank you. Any other comments in regards to our sport?
Like, at what point do we start looking at the space thing as being an issue? Like, how long do we wait before that becomes a conversation and start thinking about what solutions we can start materializing?
I think it is an issue. I don't think it ever hasn't been an issue. And I guess,
No, I know it's an issue, but when do we start?
I guess,
doing
I think
something
that it's
about it.
not something that we could do on our own, but we do have a tri-board meeting coming up on the 9th, and I know that there's always a big push from the rec department as well, that there's just not enough space, and maybe it's time to try and put something in the works, or at least get a plan together, because there was another steep grant that came available, and while I don't think that we could use the steep grant specifically to attach it to the school because the regulations, I think that if we did something as a joint project, it would be acceptable. So we could certainly put it on the June 9th tri-board agenda. Anyone else? Okay. Well, then I think that we didn't move anything, right? So we're just going on to 6, old business. Fiscal year 26 budget. The town meeting happened. It was very quiet. Good night, ladies. Thank you. It was quiet. The school didn't get any questions at the town meeting about our budget. The referendum is coming up on 5/19. So please vote, encourage others to vote. And then at our next meeting on 5/28, I would like to, Christine, you had mentioned sort of doing this with the tri-board. I'd like to do it for us as well. Sort of a look back, what went well for us, what could we have done better through the budget season. Anybody else have any comments about the budget process for tonight?
Will we be having a finance committee meeting that night as well? Because it'd be nice to see where we're at year to date.
I would say that we should, because it would be
It's
the meeting
coming
that we
pretty
did.
close.
Do you want to put it, you want to schedule one?
Yeah. that would
Okay.
be good.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Irrigation project update. Roy?
Yeah, as you know, the RFP finally went out. Thank you to Sue Thoreau, who did a ton of back and forth work to get it finally approved. So it's out. There's been some interest. I've answered a few questions. And the opening of the bids is scheduled for June 5th, Thursday the 5th. But there's a mandatory walkthrough. I believe it's the 22nd of May, which Randy's going to do that with me. And so we'll see. We'll see what interest, we'll see what bids we get. Timing wise, it's a little unknown. I really wanted this out in like a December, but it just didn't happen. And it wasn't anybody's fault, other than, the state agency controlling the bid. Just, there was a lot of back and forth to get it. And they're administering the grant, so it has to be to their, all their specs need to be in there. So anyway, it is, and Sue did a ton of work. I really thank her a lot. So there's that. That's the update.
Troy, do you have any idea once we get the RFP and decide who we're going with, what kind of timeframe we're in? I mean, are we
Yeah,
still
I
looking
think
to
it's a
have
little
this
up in
done by
the air.
fall?
Initially, I was really hoping for the summer. I'm still kind of hoping for that, but it really depends on who bids and what they're able to do and what they have scheduled
Okay,
already. It is possible that it could be a year off from now. It is an issue with our sports program and the disruption that it could cause. So that's something that's going to have to be worked out. I mean, I'm really still hoping for the best and we get it done this summer, but time will tell.
Do we have a possible plan for, because I know when we got our presentation, what feels like forever ago, regarding this, the man with the Irish accent who was presenting was talking about the fact
Ian
that,
Lacy.
thank you, was talking about the fact that fall was actually the best time to be doing these things. And obviously it would disrupt fall sports schedules. And so the question becomes, do we have any sort of a fallback plan if that's our best option to go forward with?
Well, we'll create a plan if that's our best option. And we got to just wait for the bids to come in, but
just because we are still in school, maybe let Berna kind of know that.
Yeah.
To sort of start thinking about that, maybe reaching out to other schools, sort of just in the.
Yeah.
The chance that comes to fruition, that we kind of have something on the back burner, sort of.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
yeah, absolutely.
we all want summer. Especially because if I remember correctly, what it actually was if we were going to strip down and do those sand trench pieces to it, that was best in the fall. But I think the irrigation was we're not doing that. And the irrigation I thought was less invasive and therefore wouldn't be as big of a deal in the summer. I guess I'd like to get it in, and I worry when we have grant funding that we're going to push back, because if it disrupts one sports season, as terrible as that would be, if we lose it and never get to put it in, that feels like a bigger loss long term. So
I think we'll know in a couple weeks what the plan needs to be, and then we can figure out how to get it done.
So we're gonna talk about that as well, but our first meeting in June would technically right now be the 11th. My question to the board is that, is there any interest as we talk more about irrigation and we move into this whole idea of field improvement, and maybe our facilities are a little squished at the time that we start that, can we start taking a look at our facilities rental policy? I mean, we have one, and I think that it's so important that we be inviting the community to come in and use our fields, but I think we should maybe take a look at who's using them, what the priority is, what is the priority that we want, and then how do we make sure that we're not damaging our fields as a result of maybe being too welcome to the community. So maybe that's something we can do over the summer. Okay.
Yeah,
And-
it's a good idea. Maybe on that June meeting, start.
Yeah, and Troy, I don't know if that's something that you want Bern to be here for, to provide a little bit of insight. I would think that she probably has the most awareness about like the need for the facility use and who needs what when. And maybe have some feedback. So if you want to invite her to that meeting, I think that would be awesome. But I think we
Okay.
should talk about it sooner rather than later,
Agreed.
especially before maybe we move into that fall sports arena. Anything else on irrigation? In terms of new business, I just wanted to revisit format and frequency. Format, right before we went into budget, we sort of resurrected the finance committee. I said we would talk about the finance committee again once we were done. I think that through the budget process, it became clear to me a couple of things that the finance committee could be really useful at, that maybe puts us in a better position knowledge-wise coming into next budget season. So I was not a huge proponent of the finance committee earlier, but I think I really am now. Does everybody want to keep it? Are we good with keeping it for now? Okay, good, good.
As long as we're making sure we're getting all the information to the rest of the board,
Right.
so that everybody's really aware of what happened there, and I'll try to make sure I'm taking good notes and getting communication out, but even doing a really good debriefing at the follow-up board meeting.
Which I think you did a wonderful job with. I like over time as we've been doing that, those have been great. I feel like when you come in, you explain what was talked about, what came up. I feel well informed with that. I think the only time that I had any concerns was the one time when we were asked to make a decision about something in the meeting immediately following the finance committee meeting, and I hadn't had an opportunity to watch the finance committee meeting yet. So
So
I'll-
that is, the way it is scheduled, though, that is our financial meeting of the month. So that may be something that we want to address moving forward, is that maybe we don't want the finance committee meeting to be immediately before the financial meeting of the month in case something comes up. But I think that we
I-
could spend some time talking about, like, in the finance committee, like, what are those, like, how can we do that, you know?
I also think that most of the time I'm not concerned with it. Like I wish I could remember off the top of my head what it was.
It's a specific voting thing.
Yeah, it was something I had to vote on and I didn't
Could have waited.
that I didn't feel like I had the information to vote. And that would be my only concern because obviously I get the financials. I look through the financials. Most of the stuff that you're talking about, I'm thinking, oh, okay, that's, that makes sense. Okay, whatever. And then there was something that had come up. Most times I have to be honest, I hold a lot of trust in Christine in the same way that I held a lot of trust in Alex when he was kind of the chair of that committee with the idea with those numbers, because I mean, part of our process as a board is we delegate responsibilities and then we trust other people to do it. So I'm not typically concerned. It was that instance. I can't remember why it stood out, but it was something that I felt unprepared for voting.
So it's not so much the financials, it's that if there's some offshoot that comes up that maybe we don't say, okay, we decided we need to do this vote on it, that maybe can wait.
Yeah, and I think that depending on how the finance committee chooses to move forward, there may be things that we just do regularly that makes everybody feel prepared for all of the things, right? Like it's not like a new concept that came out of the finance committee that day, but rather something that we're talking about and talking to the board about.
That might have been the time that we suspended the
The
non-lapsing.
non-lapsing, I think that was it.
I
That
think
was a
the-
big one.
And I think I was
Yeah.
also just kind of
Yeah.
frustrated in that moment as well.
Yeah.
And so I
No,
think
that was a big
there were a
one.
variety of things that laid into that.
That makes sense.
Since then, honestly, like I love the format from a non-finance committee member position because I think that Christine's come in wonderfully and just said, hey, listen, these are the talking points. This is what came up. Kathy responded to this with this. This is how this all came through, and then boom. And I have been very happy with that process. So
That's great. Well, then let's keep finance committee and let's schedule one. A meeting frequency, so typically in. Sure. Sure, so we're still continuing to use the 2 meeting a month agenda skeleton. So this is our policy meeting. The second meeting of the month is the business and finance meeting, although through budget season, it was really budget focused. I think they are also highly involved in their own stuff at this time of year, but they will be back at the next meeting with a report. I think. Well, is there any speaking? I think that's on the 27th. I think we'll be okay. Yeah, I think we should be.
But before we move on, can I add one more other format piece? I'm sorry. I would love, one of the things that I've seen on the Learn board is that we get an agenda and an annotated agenda, and the annotated agenda states what the, in the case of that, it's what the, the president's learned is hoping will happen. Not necessarily hoping, what action they're looking for. So if there's a policy that's being brought up, it will say underneath that, like, there's the main agenda that gets posted, but then there's an annotated agenda that goes out to board members. And underneath the policy, it will say this is a first read, hoping for, members to read through this and consider it for next meeting. And then on another one, it might say hoping for somebody to make a motion to be able to, move this forward, or something like that. Because I feel like sometimes when we get the agendas, they don't necessarily tell us what's going to happen with the things. And I would love the format to be that we get the agenda that goes out, but we also get, like, next to meeting format and meeting frequency, we would say, at discussion with board members regarding what, whether or not we like the finance committee setup, whether, and have kind of the bullet points that put that on the agenda in the first place, not for everybody, but for us, so that we're then able to prepare. So if things are being considered, that we need to be like, okay, well, do I like the finance because I didn't know that was what meeting format meant until we got here. And
Okay.
so on the fly, I'm then thinking, okay, well, how is the finance committee? And instead of me being able to consider it when I see the agenda, having those annotations in there have been really helpful on the Learn side of things. And I think they would be really helpful for us as a board to be able to come in and more quickly move through our meeting format, because there wouldn't be all the questions or the discussion. We can be like, no, okay, I'm good on this, and we can move through it.
Or why is that on there?
Right.
Not
So
sometimes
sometimes I have
why,
that where I'm like, are we talking, is there a problem with the meeting format? Is there something in particular we're going to look at? Is there, and I don't know. And it's nice in that other forum to see that annotation set up where it's like, this is what's going to happen. This is what, Troy would like to present this and is considering a change to this. Please consider if you would think that would make sense. And again, it's not hiding it. It's still considered open meeting, but it's just giving us the heads up as to what piece of that is coming up in the meeting.
I have a couple of questions that I want to run by the open meeting guy at the state in terms of what we're hoping to get.
I misphrased that when I first said it. It's not hoping. What it is what is the purpose of that on the agenda? So having
think
meeting
we can do
format,
that.
like what is the purpose of meeting format
Yeah.
on the agenda? Are
think
we
we can
looking
do
to
that.
adjust the agenda? Are we looking to change the, like, what is the discussion meant to focus on, as opposed to coming in and being like, I wonder what this is going to be about, right? Like, I mean, it feels very,
Sure. So Troy, you and I can try to do that for the 28th, and then maybe give us some feedback.
and if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But I like it in that other space. And so I'd be curious. I would love it. Sometimes I feel ill prepared about what the discussion is going to be on coming in. And I would love to see that as a format in our meetings. I think it would speed things up,
Okay.
but
Yeah, we'll give it a try.
Give us some time to think a little bit. I have one quick question kind of for the rest of the board too on the student ambassadors. I really love when they can contribute to what we're talking about. I find the presentation to be a little bit time consuming sometimes. It used to be that our administrators would tell us what was going on at the school. Now that's sort of been put on the ambassadors. I don't know if there's a way to shore that up a little bit, or if that's if everybody else on the board really enjoys hearing all that. I think most of us know most of that, so I just didn't know what you guys thought about all that.
I kind of agree. I want their. I was thinking about this. When I saw meeting format, I thought. So again.
Well, I was just revisiting, right, what we talked about before budget season.
Right. So anyway, again, that's what. But I almost feel like
is it, and maybe this isn't gonna work. It might be a lot of work for them, I think, to do the, like, it seems like it's, so maybe we would, or they would be more interested in looking at what the agenda is and kind of give us their opinion.
I think we've adjusted things now so that they receive the agenda packet with the rest of the board and have a chance to review it. And I think we've given them the opportunity, and not like we gave them once, but like they sort of have the opportunity to jump in. I think during budget season, they just weren't here.
I know they were super busy, but I would have liked to have. Valuable. Or maybe it could even be something like things that they want to bring up to us. You know, maybe they hold a open session. Like instead of like a, I agree with Christine, like instead of like a, the elementary school did this, but where it's it's nice to hear and I like their presentations, but I want their
I think absolutely it would be nice to hear what their real concerns are. There's a lot that they, you know, just now that Madison's out of school, I remember there's a lot of nights she'd be like, that's not what's happening. Do you know what's really happening? And this is, and it could just be their perspective, but I think we need to hear what their perspective is. If it's that they think their lunches are horrific and they don't feel like they're healthy, we need to know that. Or if they are having an issue with gym time or this or that, I would rather they come to us with, you know, what are the hot topics of the last 2 weeks going on at school and how can the board support that versus a report out on what we already kind of know what's going on at the school.
So
We
do
know
we-
when the plays are, we know when the stuff
Do
is.
we want to use 528 when they're here instead of asking them for a report? Do we want to, because I feel bad having this conversation without them. Do we want to do, Grace is graduating, but Anna is here for another year. Do we want to do like a debrief with them and say, like, does this feel okay? I also don't want to put them in a position where we're asking them to sort of like report back to us about like what's, you know, like what's really happening or what they don't like. And then they're like, well, if I say that, then like so-and-so will be mad at me. And so I want to make sure that we're also being respectful of how that might feel from their perspective. But I think they would tell us. I think Grace and Anna would say, like, we would like to do this. We think people would like to do that. We're not interested in doing this. So do you want to just ask them next week and or 2 weeks from now and talk about all of that? I think we can have a candid conversation with them and say, like, the reports feel nice, but canned. Yeah.
And there's some things I like. I mean, because the piece where they're reporting out on the things that have happened. First off, I love the fact that they add their little commentary in on it and the pieces of things that like, oh, this really stood out to me, or oh, I remember talking. I love the highlight on the teachers where they go and visit a classroom and watch what they're doing. You know, the fact that one of the students had sat in on like a first grade classroom or a kindergarten classroom for a while and then had come in and given like those pieces of things are neat because they're giving us a perspective. Again, it's a perspective from the kid about something that's going on. I like that a lot more than interviewing Rob and Kristen for the things that are happening because that is Rob and Kristen's perspective just kind of given to us through the mouths of the students. So.
All right, well, I will put that on the agenda and maybe just chat with them ahead of time and say, like, bring your ideas. We wanna talk about what we can do better. In terms of frequency, I just want to talk about the summer schedule. So we have a meeting on 5/28. That's our second May meeting. Typically in the summer, we drop down to one a month. For June, we have the 11th and the 25th. I'm wondering if we could get rid of the 11th and just go with the 25th because that's, I know when Kathy talks about the financials, she has better information the longer we wait. Would that be okay?
Except for I'm really curious if we're opening RFP and the bids and where we're gonna go with that for the irrigation. If we wait another month, that's for 3 weeks. That's 3 weeks where we could have possibly revisited on that and made some decisions on how we're moving forward.
If the bids close on the on the 5th.
They're opening on the 5th.
I'm
They're
sorry.
opening them on the 5th.
When do we close them?
That's the close and open date.
Same.
Okay, so then, Troy, what does the next step have to be on the 5th?
We open the bids and we typically look at them and usually it's the lowest bidder, but there are other factors to be considered. And I think it really kind of depends on what the bids say, like what the next steps are. I'm going to have the town hall be involved in that opening because it's really a town grant. And so I'll be working with them about what the next steps are. I mean, we may have no bids, we may have one bid, we may have 6.
And ultimately, we have to approve who gets the bid, right?
Yeah.
So
Well-
how long do you think it will take for you to review that information with your people, Troy?
Probably a few days.
And then Troy will make a recommendation to us, is that right?
Well, I'm not sure about that. Something I have to clarify because this technically is a town grant. It's not a Board of Ed grant.
So we may not need to approve this? Yes?
So I think,
We would need to approve our expenditure on it, though.
And I
Yes,
think we're
yeah.
gonna just want discussion on it and be part of the process, whether we
Yeah.
physically approve it or
Sure.
don't approve it. We'd like to, I'm just wondering, and I know June 11th is a rough week because it's graduation.
It is
I'm
a rough
wondering if we
week.
do the week after and just do one meeting on the 18th.
So the Board of Finance is meeting on the 18th. So that's the problem we run into in the summer when we choose a different Wednesday. So they also usually cancel some meetings, but we don't have that information
I'm
quite
just
yet.
wondering if we could reach out to them. We have given up quite a few of our meeting spaces through budget time. Maybe they could work with us on this
They
one.
meet next week. So we could talk to them next week. We did just schedule something, a school event, a sports boosters event for the 18th because it was a Board of Finance meeting.
you
Um,
could hold a finance committee meeting and maybe to look at.
I think it's
some
a
of the
whole
bid
board
stuff.
thing.
It's good.
It's a whole board thing.
Well, and I'll be honest, I will be gone on the 25th. I was also kind of, in my head, I was hoping that we might not be doing the 11th because of graduation, but instead of waiting till the 25th, decide to do the 18th. That was,
Or we
that,
could do
that,
the 17th, I mean, it's a special meeting, so we could do any date. It doesn't have to.
I won't be around.
but I will be, yeah, I will be gone and unable to be virtual. I'm going to be in the Grand Canyon on the 25th, so
You just crawl out for the.
I might be able to make my way to the
Shouldn't be a
top,
big deal.
somewhere high and,
So we shouldn't have, let's see, the Board of Selectmen don't meet on that 17th. They wouldn't be meeting on that Tuesday. So that's the other competition for the room, is that they meet on the alternate Tuesday. They meet on Board of Finance Tuesday. So, oh, you're right. They don't meet, yeah. So this room is taken on the 17th. They meet at 6:30. I mean, how do you all feel about that?
well, we would mostly be aiming to have the focus of it be this, and there shouldn't be a whole lot of other things that we're doing.
Do you want
in
that to be the
June.
June meeting, the 17th?
I would be okay with June 17th.
The 18th would be extraordinarily difficult for me. Why don't I check the calendar? You want to tentatively go for a special meeting on the 17th? And we focus heavily on this RFP thing. Okay. And so we're going to eliminate, as long as it's clear everywhere else, 6:11 and 6:25, and go with 6:17. And what time do you all want? Then we're a hard stop at 6:30. Pat, does that work for you? Brian, how's 5 o'clock on 6:17?
6:17 could work. Sorry. The audio's been wonky for me tonight, so give me 1 second to look at that date. 6/17, that's a Tuesday.
Yeah.
5 o'clock does not work for me.
What's the earliest you could do on 6/17?
I could do any time. I have a commitment at 5:30 that evening. So I can do any time before that. It's summertime, summer hours for me, so I can kind of work around it if need be.
What does anybody think about Thursday, the 19th?
I mean, technically it's a federal holiday.
Oh my gosh, of course it is. That's why there's nothing on the calendar. Makes a lot of sense. Hmm. Zoning Board of Appeals are meeting at 5:30 on the 17th as well. 5:30. Hmm. That looks okay on the town calendar. Maybe you're back there. Brian, the 16th at 5:30?
That could work. 16th at 5:30. I can make that work.
Okay, so unless there's some sort of weird conflict that I'm not seeing on the town calendar, let's go with the 16th, and I will send something out just confirming that that works. But that's really great. So that will be our June meeting. We have 7/9 and 7/23. I think Kathy would prefer 7/23. Does anybody have issues with 7/23?
I don't.
So, I mean, I believe we may be getting back that night from Iowa, but yeah, it'll be what it'll be.
Okay.
Let's leave it at 23 because there's no way I can do 9. So,
Okay. Well, 7/23 it is. Okay, and then in August we have 8/13 and 8/27. What's that? Oh, that's a 6:30. It's a regular scheduled meeting, just normal for us. We have the space ready. I would think that in August we maybe want to take the earlier meeting because we're sort of getting ready to back, and the 27th feels like just a really bad time.
well, Troy's gonna have way too much to do at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
So 8/13 and cancel 8/27. Okay. And then what's wrong?
I said summer's already over. We haven't even started.
And we're
So then we have tri-board scheduled for 6/9. I told Bob I would just run that date by people in case it was like a big no for a lot of people. How are people feeling about 6/9? As a mother of a
I-
teen, okay.
I won't be there because that's the lead up to that's our awards night. The next night is our athletic awards, so I cannot be there.
Okay, so Jamie, are you a no or you're just I don't like it?
That's why I don't like it.
Okay, anybody else? The timing isn't great, but for me, when we were looking at June, it doesn't get any better.
well, I was gonna say, I mean, for me, the summer's always gonna be chaos. So,
I think they meet at 6.
If we could stick
What's
to,
funny
it
is-
used to need to be an hour-long meeting, and then it got to be 3 hours of kind of beating up the boards if we could make it a little bit different.
I think your suggestion earlier in the year about utilizing the tri-board as a budget look back, I think that's what Bob intends to do, and that could be long. I mean, I don't know. It will depend what people have to say about it. I know that you had some stuff you wanted to talk about how this all worked, and so it certainly could take some time, or it could be fast. And I know that we just said that we would talk about the gym issue, so I think an hour is great if it's just like a, high five, great job, but to get anything really substantive discussed, I think it's probably longer than an hour. But I agree, some of them are more emotionally exhausting than others. So any other thoughts on 6-9? I'm just gonna report back up. Mike Anderson's talking to his board as well, so it may turn out that 6-9 just doesn't work, but I will deliver that information to Bob. And then the other date, graduation 6/13. If you haven't responded to Kara, can you respond to Kara? Okay. Well, I guess, the letter Kristen sent out indicated in the circle where we used to, where do you want to be?
Oh, I just. Last year was indoors.
Oh,
2
right,
years
2
ago?
years ago, I'm sorry.
So we sat up. We all sat up. Bye, Pat. Thank you. So where do we want to be?
As long as we're together, I think it's nice to be together.
I think,
Maybe in the front row,
it's that circle, right?
on the
So like,
top of the hill.
like with the faculty around.
Right.
You'd be like circling, looking up at the graduates with the faculty. But the board would be together because we all process together.
Yeah.
Does that work?
Yep.
Okay. Are you
Oh,
sure?
yeah.
Okay.
Can I make a comment on graduation?
Yeah.
When there's a weather issue like we had last year, personally having had a senior going through that last minute decision was horrific. And I would think at this stage of the game, when we've been doing outdoor graduations as long, we would have a plan B in place way ahead of time. That weather pattern did not change for 5 days. We knew that was happening. We had heard it was happening. No decision was made until the kids were all at their morning celebration of their senior year and were told, by the way, get ready, you're doing an indoor graduation. They had no way to bring their signs in timely. They had no way to decorate the gym timely. They were in tears. It was a mess. So I would like to see if there's a chance that we're looking at the weather 5 days ahead of time, 4 days ahead of time, and there's a plan B that's solid in place, we make a call on that early. And then if we're fortunate enough that the weather changes, I'd rather see a last minute call to go back to an outdoor setting. That it was really difficult for those kids to go through what they went through that day.
So I did get an email. All senior parents got an email that like talked about what. I didn't get an email last year, so I don't know the difference. But I got an email this year that made me feel like there was like a plan in place, and like we were aware, like the call will be made at this time, that sort of stuff. 9 o'clock on Friday.
Don't think that's fair to your kids. Like, they want a plan. They want to, if we're going to decorate the gym or do anything for them, there's 9 o'clock on Friday is when they're all getting together to watch their videos and do all of that stuff. It seems, I'd rather at 9 o'clock on Friday be like, hey, you know what? The weather looks great. We're going to be able to be outside after all. And have had that difficult weather decision be made early. Obviously, it depends on what the weather is like, but I'm just saying from experience, that was a very difficult situation, and it seemed to be very fast responding. It just seems like we would have a better thought out plan at this point for a weather issue.
I think it's also very different to have family know a few days ahead of time, I shouldn't make the trip into town, and then find out, oh, it ended up being outside, and being like, darn it, I could have done it. Or make the choice to come on the chance that it might end up outside, as opposed to being in town, having traveled here and suddenly not having a ticket. I think that's probably tough. on a secondary piece to that, I also want to say that I heard from people last year that, because we all kind of said we're going to give up our seats so that parents could have it. And apparently that looked really bad to people. So I just want to say, for us as a board, we should not do that again. It was
Yeah,
it was meant to be a kind gesture to say, hey, we would rather have family get
I
these
also think that
seats.
the situation, so being a part of that situation in real time, and I think while I do agree with what you're saying, Christine, in terms of like the processing, the sort of immediate response is everyone's going to get, I think it was 3 tickets, which is vastly different, right? Than if you could invite whomever you wanted to sit on the lawn. And the thought was that people had people in town or people that were important to them wouldn't be able to be present because of the 3. And so I think there were a number of people, even some staff members, that opted not to go in an effort to give more tickets back to the kids so it could be their graduation. Ultimately, what happened was that there wasn't a shortage of tickets, and I don't think anyone was turned away. But I think that because it happened and it was evolving and it was so chaotic, that people were responding right away saying, like, I don't need to sit in the seat. I need so-and-so's grandma to sit in the seat. And so I didn't hear, and again, like my oldest was graduating. I didn't hear from anyone that it looked bad. I don't know whose perspective that was from. I think families were grateful to be able to feel good at, 10 o'clock that their grandmas could come. But by the end of the day, everyone could invite everyone they wanted anyway. I just think it was sort of unavoidable chaos with that particular plan. And I would give up my graduation seat any day to make sure somebody's family could be there if I thought that they couldn't. So in that moment, I was super thankful that the board said, we don't need to be there. We want everybody's family to be there. And,
But there were, Steph, and you maybe didn't hear, but there were quite a few comments about why isn't, when people were watching their children graduate, saying, why isn't the Board of Ed up there?
and
There
I
were
guess,
people-
the,
And we
yeah,
understand why.
yeah, and
We
I guess
know why
the
we gave
answer,
up our tickets.
the answer should have been so that you could be there.
Well, we do, and that was the
Yeah.
answer, but I think what we're saying in the planning process is the board shouldn't be giving up their seats at the last minute. The board should be expected to be there because it is part of the importance of the whole thing was a bit of a mess, is what I'm saying. And as a parent who went through it, the last thing you want to do on graduation day is have your child sobbing. It's not how it should be. And there is a better way to do it. And I'm hopeful that we're taking that and taking some look back on it and saying, how could we do it different? And I guess my only comment would be maybe we could have plan be in place earlier with the hopes that we could come out with a ray of sunshine and say, guess what? After all, we get to do it on the lawn. I think that would be a better messaging.
Troy, I don't know. I mean, I just got a letter. The letter felt like there was a plan B, and I don't think there would be a rush to tickets this time because I think they understand what that actually looks like. And last year, there wasn't a real-time understanding of what it was going to look like. I agree. I don't want tears at graduation. That was hard to watch. It was hard to watch that morning.
Yeah, I can review it with the Wheeler administration and talk through it with them and see if there's some alteration to what they're planning already that could help prevent the tears, because we don't want that. That we didn't want that, and we don't want to have a repeat. So I'll talk it through with them and see if there's a way, of making a call, maybe a different timing or something. But it sounds like they're really hoping for an outside when they say,
Oh, yeah.
we're going to
And
do
I
that. So
do-
they don't want to.
I mean, I also want to say, and like, no disrespect for anyone that thought anything but my first year on the board, I went to graduation. Christine was sitting up on the lawn because you were speaking. I was the only other board member that was sitting with the staff. And so while maybe people noticed last year because we were inside, I think this particular board, it like really embraces the idea of graduation, but I don't know that was always the case. I was literally the only board member sitting there.
I was asked if we were protesting something.
Yeah, so I just
Like
think,
it was
like,
it,
I
it
just
was
think,
it
again,
was a
it's
thing
like
that
it's a
was
perspective,
Huh?
and And historically, the whole board hasn't been in attendance. I think that we just have, and I think that maybe there was more of a spotlight because we were inside. But just a little bit of a historical perspective. I remember being the only board member and actually feeling like, geez, is it weird that
Well, also,
That's
we didn't
insane.
come through in a processional because we weren't even if we weren't sitting up front, we just weren't, we didn't exist last year because we just weren't
Right,
there. So, I
right.
mean, I was there, obviously, but,
Right. No, I
and
agree.
it's not, I'm not doing it to judge it or say it was bad. I'm just saying, let's think about it and try to do it a little bit different this year if we get to that situation again, if possible.
I agree. Okay. Power outage, 7C.
Where are we at now?
7C power outage.
Oh,
You. You're
oh,
on.
that's me. Oh, it's my
We're
agenda
still in
item.
the Board
Thank
of
you.
Ed meeting.
Thank you. All right, so it seems like such a long time ago, but you may remember back recently, we had a early dismissal. And it was an unfortunate timing of this event. There was a truck that hit a pole down on Route 2 and knocked the power out of, I know, Town Hall, knocked the power out of schools, out of this building. And it happened to be right in the timing where food is being prepared for Wheeler at the elementary school, as you probably remember. All the food's prepared at elementary school, and we have a van that brings it over. So about 9:30, 9:45 is when the power went off. And our kitchen staff, so there's several factors. One was the meal preparation. And they felt like if they didn't get the power back by within a few minutes, like 15 minutes, by like 10 o'clock approximately, they were not going to, the temperature of the food would have gone down too much to serve, and they can't reheat it because of regulations. So it would have to be like thrown away. Or even if they tried to transport it, it would have, it wasn't enough. They hadn't prepared enough for Wheeler already. So basically, there wasn't enough food to feed the students at Wheeler. Now, the other part of the meal scenario was they realized after we didn't get the power back and the kids are now going to be dismissed, 11 o'clock Wheeler, 12 o'clock at the elementary school. They realized, all right, we have this food, we heat it up, and well, it's not enough for Wheeler, we can't bring it over there, but we can serve some of the elementary school kids. So they decided to bring it to classrooms, and they did that. But none of the kids at Wheeler were able to get or got a meal. Had someone really needed it and asked for it, they would have got them like a bag lunch or something to take home. But they didn't have enough to run lunch waves at Wheeler. The other, and I met with the Aramark, the manager, and the regional director this morning in person to go over the whole scenario. And we believe that they did the best they could with what they had. They actually had no lights in the kitchens, and they were using their cell phones for their lamps, their torch. Hey Siri, turn on torch. And they were doing that to try to put meals and give to the elementary school kids. And they were doing the best they could with it. But once we learned that we're not going to be able to feed the kids, and other things like kids going into dark bathrooms and in a dark hallway. And even I forgot, and I went to the restroom in the central office. I shut the door and was like, it's dark in here. I can't do anything. So I opened the door and I found another facility. But it's that kind of thing. It's like this domino effect when the power goes out. We couldn't use the PA system at Wheeler when there was no power. All right. So there, you know, we have between the dark, no PA, no food, we have a situation where we don't know the timing where electricity is going to come back on. And I called Bob for selectmen, talked to him about it. He said, yeah, we lost power at Town Hall as well. You know, we don't know. He's trying to call Eversource. We do get in contact with Eversource. They tell us, look, it looks like 1 o'clock, you're going to get power back on. And then we're like, well, that's kind of too late to have kids be going to the bathroom in the dark all for a couple hours and they still can't feed the kids. So had to make a quick decision. Call M&J, say, can you get the bus drivers in? They could do it. So then I was like, okay, I got to put the message out. I was going to do I attempted to record my own voice, but the timing of it, sometimes it takes like a minute or two to like process and come back. So forget it, just the robot's going to read it. I got to get this message out. And unfortunately, I don't think there was much of a choice. We had to just do the early dismissal. But one of the other factors here is that the generators kick on when you don't have power, right? So talked to Bob about this as well. Talked to Randy. Randy's already communicated with Alan Ladd at the town, and they need to figure out exactly what the generators are supposed to power, and then figure out, are the generators actually powering those things? All right, we got to have a clear description of that, because we don't right now. Because the lights in the kitchen, logically, you might think like that should go on. The refrigerators in the kitchen, so when I have all the food spoil, you would think the generator might power that. Clearly, the generators don't power the ovens because they weren't able to then continue to heat the food. So we got to get a good handle on that. And this issue pointed out that we don't have a good handle on what the generators power and if they're powering those things. So we have some work to do to figure it out. I hope that our next meeting, I'll be able to come back to a report, what do the generators power? And then so we all know and it's clear. And I talked to Bob about, hey, if you want to use, the buildings for emergency shelter at some point, you need to know, right, what the generators power. Well, I think it's the fire station is the main area now, the newer facility up there, but I can be wrong on that. And so we got to clarify that as well.
Also, like, the food is one thing, but safety, to me, you can't use a PA system if the power goes out for something that's maybe nefarious for some reason. What's the safe, are the lockdowns working? Is any of that stuff working? Are the buildings locked up, or are the locks just not
Right.
engaging?
I do know that fire panels were still functioning. I do know that.
But yeah, I appreciate that you recognized that generator issue, because that was the big question. is
Yeah, we do
what's
believe the
going on?
generators are in good shape because they do the preventive maintenance on a regular basis. They turn them on, they come on weekly. But yet, we got to check.
Right, because we don't know what they're powering, and if they're powering what they powered the other day.
That's right,
Then they're not powering what we need them to power.
right.
Right.
So the two questions, what are they supposed to power and what are they powering?
Yeah.
Bathroom lights seem like they should be at the
Really
top
important.
of that
right?
list.
Yeah. Right, the telephones and the
Yeah,
PA, and this should be part of our emergency plan for sure.
Yeah, and I got to say, all the staff were really helpful and they did what they had to do. The teachers, the food service administration, everybody, these types of things, it's like quick decisions, quick communications. We've identified some issues where we could have communicated better during the situation as well. So, we'll be looking to do that in the future. And so it was a learning experience, but I was really happy that, the bus company, M&J, they were right on it, got hold of all the bus drivers, got them right in right away. And that all worked. And honestly, I got no phone calls, no emails, nothing from
That's because
parents
none
at
of the
all
phones
about
were
being
working.
dissatisfied. I got nothing.
Question. What
So
happens if you,
families, thank you for your cooperation.
I have a question about that. What happens, you get the buses running and stuff, and you've got young children maybe going to a home that doesn't have a parent home?
Right.
Or, because the message has gone out, I'm at work now.
Right.
And
So-
my child's on a bus on
Well,
my
this is
doorstep.
why I got the message out as soon as I could and used the robotic voice.
But what would you do?
But
Like, when
with the secretaries and administration and all the teachers were in for the whole day. And so there were adults in the buildings if kids would come back. So bus drivers don't drop off young children unless there's someone waiting for them. And they bring them back to school. That's the procedure.
But we'll put that on 528 for sure to hear like a follow-up.
Yeah, that's a big problem. Anyway, but I'm assuming.
No, the day counts. It used to be years back, you had to come in and do 4 hours in school to count it for a day. Now you just got to come in and go home. And it counts. So I'm thinking about doing that like tomorrow.
There is, there,
No more crazy.
there is a total number of hours though, right? And I'm assuming that we're plenty over that.
Well,
Because
there-
it
there-
does count as a day no matter what, as long as you come in. However, the total amount of hours spent in school at the end of the year has to total a certain amount.
Yeah, well, actually,
And we have quite a
so
few
there's a
half
state
days.
report, I think it's the ED 165, where we have to report hours. But it's due before the end of the school year, and you calculate the hours using your schedules and the number of days, number of half days, minutes of lunch and all that, and you do all that calculation before the end of the year. So if something happens like that, if you lose a whole day, you got to make up a whole day.
That schedule is pretty close to what our half days is, and we didn't have any lunches built into it. So on a half day, they build in a lunch break usually, don't they? They take like an early lunch break or something, usually on a half day.
Yeah,
Because an 11
at-
o'clock and a 12 o'clock dismissal is pretty close to what our half.
Pretty close.
days
It was,
normally would
it's
be.
an hour earlier for each school. And we did that purposefully because we were in the dark. And also with the idea if kids got home early enough, they could eat lunch at home.
Well, and it doesn't have to do with the length of the half day. It would be that it was supposed to be a whole day and then you eliminated 4 hours. So if we were like only 3 hours over, what we needed, and then now we're 4 hours, 1 hour under, but I didn't realize that it was done just on as a estimate and wasn't exact. So whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I knew there was something else that I wanted. Did we have disruptions in the SBAC schedule because of it?
Oh, absolutely.
Are we going to be okay with that
Unfortunately,
and still get it
thank you
done?
for the teachers and the kids for persevering through that. Rob is working on that with the people at the state and the assessment department on how to handle that. But yes,
Just
so the
so
kids
did
are gonna
they-
have to
did they
take the
lose it
test
right in
still.
They lost it right in the middle.
They were at various points in the test,
okay.
depending on where the
It
individual
wasn't
student
my
was.
kid's day, but I figured it
He's-
had to be somebody's
He's
day.
working with them to see if they can turn back on the test where the kids were, or do they have to reset it all? So he's hoping they could bring it back to where the kids were, because as you know, there's a certain testing code that they might be able to bring it back, for those kids.
The problem is whichever test they had, there's certain things that they don't let them.
Yeah, so
Hey,
anyway.
they'll figure
they're
it all
working
out. I was just
They're
curious how
working
much
on
of an
it.
impact
Kids will
that
be
had.
fine.
How about the AP schedule?
I do not believe the AP schedule was affected. I could be wrong on that. No one told me that. I know we had kids over here today. I don't think we had any yesterday.
Anything else on power outage? Okay, on to policies. Chet and Troy, I'm gonna turn this over to you, however you want to handle this. Or vote, whatever the case may be.
Chat, you want me to start and you can jump in? Okay, so two of these policies we had on the agenda last time. And we said we'd bring them back again, but between the last meeting and this meeting, Chet, Lisa and I met and we went over these policies. And we added in the wellness policy. The wellness policy is another one that needed to be updated. And all of them needed to be updated because of the cafeteria audit that we had that Kathy talked about last time. And so we have our current policy, which is on free and reduced price lunches. That's 3542.31. And then in here is the CABE recommended policy, same number on free and reduced lunches and participation in the national lunch program. So we had like two sections to that policy. And so the CABE one just kind of combines those two sections with some updated language. And this was one of the policies they said you needed to really update. So there's that policy. And then there's the food service charging policy, which like we have the current one, and then we have the one here that has, it's on right now, it's on North Stonington Public Schools letterhead, but we'll take it off of there and we'll just put the policy number and make it look like the other policies. The one change that Chat, Lisa, and I talked about on what's written here is, and I did cross it out. It's under the paragraph saying charging meals in the middle of the page, the phrase which excludes a la carte items, we wanted to delete that because we didn't want to treat the kids any differently than any other student. And the reality is it's confusing what a la carte item means. And an a la carte item could simply mean a piece of pizza with your milk and your fruit. And that constitutes a meal versus what's served as the normal hot meal like nachos and a milk and a fruit. So we thought it'd be less confusing if we just took that out. And then it does talk about this policy, adds in things like, we're not shaming kids. We're not putting them in the middle of it. We're dealing with the parents directly. So there's that update. And then the last one is really the wellness school, the policy on wellness, and that needed to be updated. And so there's the current one, which you just approved in 2016, but things have changed. And so they thought we needed to update that. So this is a CABE recommended one. And the only thing with the CABE recommended one that the Wellness Committee actually met and talked about, and Lisa Mazzella sits on the Wellness Committee, was under physical activity. And the last bullet on the physical activity, it talked about creating 60 minutes of physical activity each day. And we didn't feel like we could really achieve that. So the committee thought it would be best to say schools will work towards increasing opportunities for daily physical activities for students. They felt like that was something that they could definitely do that. So that's basically it. There's not a lot to it. It's just kind of just updated language and.
Troy, there was one other adjustment.
Okay, please.
On page 4, right, where it says the non-sold foods and beverages brought into the schools by students and other persons for such events as birthdays and classroom celebrations shall comply with federal nutrition standards. And then it says, note, this is a recommendation, not a requirement. But since it uses the word shall,
All right.
it
Right.
implies requirement. And so instead of that, for some reason, I feel like we discussed the language and we wrote it down, but it's not on my policy here. What we had adjusted it
I
to.
remember discussing it with you guys. Right. So
I think it is recommended to comply with federal nutrition
That's right.
standards as how we had
I think
rephrased
that's
it,
what we did. Yeah,
as opposed to shall, because with the word shall.
That's
and the
right.
Shall to me, in legalese, shall is way too strong. You can't have shall and then call it a recommendation. So.
all right. So I think you're right. We said is recommended to comply.
And I think we even added when possible at the end because it was one of those where it was like we like the idea of the
Or
of
practical. When
well, but that's
practical.
what it comes down to. Like, and the problem that we had with that as well was the idea that if some kid brings in cupcakes and there's a new teacher who has looked at this policy and is like, oh, this feels too strong, and then is going to crush a small child who's trying to get cupcakes to their friends for their birthday. Like, no, we're not looking for that piece. No, that's what we wanted to make sure you can still bring in cupcakes.
Can we use the word when practical, or not when possible?
When
possible, me if it's
then
impossible.
we should,
you know?
right? So when. So the problem is that it fit within some piece of the mandated portion where it had to do. I don't think it does, but we had the discussion as to whether it had to do with our healthy food certification. but since it's not purchasable, it's just given out. I think we had also discussed the idea of just eliminating it, and for some reason in our discussion, we did not end that way. Do you recall why? I'm happy to eliminate it. I honestly, to me, the idea of adding confusion to that aspect, because even, I mean, my kid brought in an entire
Okay.
bag of chocolate chips
Okay.
for our like
We can
trail mix
eliminate
thing
it.
for Wellness Day, right? Like, I mean,
I think we can eliminate it because it is confusing. And then if we have to bring it back for some reason, like we need it in there, we could bring it back, but
And isn't it in the regulation that they're allowed to bring in like homemade or whatever it is? That would be the regulation.
it could be, it could just be in the regulation.
I guess I just want
Yeah.
to make it clear that, because I think there's still some confusion. Do they have?
They do.
we definitely did in previous
Well, during the
years.
pandemic, I think everybody stopped doing that. It had to be prepackaged.
So I just think there's some
But-
confusion, and the fact that we're still not. I think
Well, and to my reading, it shouldn't have any impact on our participation with the federal food program, because everything there only has to do with purchasable foods. It's vending machines, it's bake sales. It's if somebody were to bring in cake and then sell it by the slice in the cafeteria, then that's not allowed. But if somebody brings in cake and hands it out to their friends in the cafeteria, totally acceptable.
Well, that's why I'm not sure if it will even police. Yeah, so as long as it's in the regulation that they can bring in something.
I'm fine.
Done.
I'm fine with it. Take it right out, then it's not confusing. Okay. So you can vote on it with that taken out, and that's the only change really then. So you could, whatever you want to do. Want to vote on them individually? I think you have to because it's not a consent agenda.
Or do you want to make a motion with all three?
There you go.
I'm happy to make a motion with all three. I do just want to make sure everybody realizes, like, on the first one, the big change for you all, just to understand, the regulation was pulled out. That's where most of the language shouldn't have been there, and then the rest of it was just updated. So it's significantly shorter than the previous one, largely because of the fact that it was another one. I feel like every time I look at a new policy within our policy book, there's another space where there's a regulation that's still on a policy, even though we had the audit, we had all like, it seems to be, yeah, it's like finding glitter. I don't know what to do about it, but it just always seems to be there.
Well, you had pointed out a few, and Brandon and I are working with CABE to get those updated, because we did find that several of the ones you pointed out, we did vote on, and they're just not updated on the CABE website. So we're taking care of those. There is one that we actually pointed out that we did not actually vote on, and it's not a required policy. But I can fill you in later on that. But
All right,
we're
so I
working on
would
it.
make a I would make a motion to approve policy 3542.31, policy 3542.43 as amended, and policy 6142.101 as amended.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we did.
Thank you, Brian. Okay. With that, I'll ask if there's any public comment online, because we don't have anyone left in the room. I see none. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Are you sure? 8:06.